All right, welcome everybody. My name is John Graves. I want to welcome you guys to this month's ArtistWorks Live. This month we're going to be talking with Nathan East, our online School of Bass teacher here at ArtistWorks.com. We're going to be taking questions from you, the audience. So please get those questions ready. And if you'd include your student name, we'll give you a little prize at the end just for your participation. We'll be choosing one person to get the prize away too. All right, so I'd like to introduce today's guest now, and there's just no way to summarize all of this man's accomplishments in just a few sentences. But to name a few of the acts he's been a part of, you got Barry White, B.B. King, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, Herbie Hancock, Daft Punk. He's an active member of the band Foreplay, which also features our beloved jazz guitar teacher, Chuck Loeb. And he is currently on the road with Eric Clapton, who he's played with for decades. Mr. Nathan East, welcome, sir.
Hey, welcome. Thanks. Thanks for that introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We know you're real busy right now. Where are you joining us from today?
Well, today I'm at home. Just flew in from New York City. We just did a couple shows at Madison Square Garden over the weekend, and then Monday flew in, and then we'll be at the Forum in LA tomorrow night.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So quick reminder to the audience, today's questions are going to be mostly coming from you guys. So time will only permit me to get to a certain amount of these, but please start sending them in now so I can hit as many as possible. Please include your student name, like I said, so that we can qualify you to win a little prize at the end. And before we get to those questions, Nate, maybe you want to start us off with a little jam, put some music in our ears?
Hey, okay.
Awesome.
Just get warmed up. It's early.
Very cool. All right, so like I said in the intro, thank you so much for joining us. You mentioned that you are currently, you're currently doing a short string of shows with Eric Clapton, and you just completed 2 sold-out shows at Madison Square Garden. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about these shows so far. How's it been?
Oh man, great fun. You know, it was great to reconnect with the boys, and Steve Gaddy is on drums, Chris Stainton's on keyboard, as well as Walt Richmond, and then we have the amazing voices in the background of Charlotte Gibson and Shar White, of course it's great to connect with Eric again. Always, it's just so much fun, and we had a blast at Madison Square. It was really great.
Yeah, and that's a good 18 or 20,000 seats, right?
Yeah, something like that. It was there weren't I didn't see any empty seats. It was all the way to the top as far as the eye could see. It was amazing. So we had a blast. Yeah.
So all the years that you've been playing shows of that caliber, is there any part of you still get those little butterflies in your stomach before you go out on stage?
It's more of excitement and just the energy of going out there. I mean, after doing it this many years, I mean, of course you get a little bit of the nerves right from the beginning, but it doesn't take long before it's just like just a big, great energy rush.
Right. And when you're playing with a lineup like that, how could you not sound great, right?
Well, I mean, I told Steve Gadd, I said he makes my job so easy. His groove is just so solid. It's kind of like, you can't get off of it. When you're bowling and the ball goes in that little gutter on the side and you can't get out of it. I feel like playing with Steve, it's the same thing. We're like, you're just in there. You're never going to get out of the groove.
Yeah.
So
well, let's talk about that for just a minute, because I know we have a lot of bass players, watching right now. So tell us a little bit about that relationship in the rhythm section between a drummer and a bass player.
Sorry about that. We're going to get a couple calls while we're doing this, of course. So
understandable.
Yeah.
That's live for you. So anyway, so tell us a little bit about that relationship between the drummer and the bass player, and just kind of what you look for in a drummer and what helps you fall into that groove and stay in it.
You know, the drummer and the bass player are kind of like husband and wife on a bandstand, you know. So I'm constantly listening to everything he's playing, where his hi-hat is. I listen to where he puts his kick drum, and I basically have to decide whether I'm going to match his kick drum or go in between the beats that he's playing, you know. So, you know, he could be doing a groove like, so if this kick drum is just going boom, boom, you know, so I can match it perfectly, or I could go in between. So those are kind of like the decisions that I get to make while I'm playing with a great drummer like that.
Oh, that's great. Cool. So, all right, we've got some questions rolling in already. The first one, this is a great question, especially for someone like yourself. What role does music play in your family life, and what has helped you most to improve your feel of rhythm? So let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit about the role music plays in your family life. Oh
man, well, in the household I grew up in, everybody took piano lessons, and there was always some kind of music going on, you know, whether it was the stereo playing or a piano, my dad or mom or brothers, somebody plunking out tunes on the piano, or then my brother had a guitar, David, you know, was playing. Nice. So then we had guitars, and then eventually I found a bass. So and in my family now, my son Noah, actually 16 years old, he plays keyboards. Mm-hmm. And so we go down before we go to bed just about every night and play something together,
cool.
You know, which is very cool. And he played on both my albums. And so we're having just a great time. Actually, you know, we've done a couple of gigs together. So, you know, it's kind of connected, the family and music.
Right. Yeah, I meant to ask you about that. I know that Noah's been playing with you more increasingly throughout the years, and you guys started doing gigs together. Like you said, he was on your last couple records. So at what point did that relationship start to form, where you kind of saw that he was ready to start kind of doing gigs with you and, you know, being in the studio with you and whatnot?
Well, actually, about 10 years ago, I was fooling around, you know, he's 6 years old. And I was kind of playing this game where I was saying, okay, I'm going to play a note and play the note that daddy plays, you know. So I would play a note, and then he would just go over and play the same note, and like without fumbling around. And so, you know, that's when I discovered that he had perfect pitch, you know, so he could literally hear a note and play it, or I could, you know, I could go play 5 notes and he could tell me what every one is, you know, on the piano, which is, you know, it's a blessing, you know. So that was when, you know, I knew something very special was going on, and then he's come to learn some of these tunes that are quite sophisticated, and his ears are so good that he's able to pick that up. So on my albums, you can hear some of his harmonic sense, which is really, you know, great touch and feel, and already at an early age. So awesome. It looks like, you know, following in the footsteps. I tried to talk him out of it.
So what's your hope for him, and then what are his hopes? Is he aiming to kind of grow up and be a professional musician, or?
Well, yeah, I think he has. I think first of all, music I think is good on any level. You know, to know it's like a language that, you know, and most businessmen or most people I've met around the world, regardless of what their position is, have said, oh, if, you know, I wish I took lessons, or I wish I was, you know, talented musically in some kind of way. So I think it's just a benefit to our DNA to have some kind of music in there, you know. So whether you choose to make a life and a career professionally, like I did, where you know, that's your job and your love and your passion, or if, you know, if you're a great businessman or whatever. A lot of guys I know to handle business, but they also, you know, they have the guitar in their office and are very, you know, passionate about music. So for Noah, since he's at such an early age, he can pretty much do anything. And I, you know, I kind of leave it up to him to make a decision. You know, we are in a different day and age in music now that, you know, CDs kind of have come and gone, and the shift in the ways you get your music out to the public and the way that has become valued are different. However, you know, people continue to make their mark as musicians, and I feel like you know, we'll play together a lot, and so we're looking forward to seeing what his direction is going to be.
That's great. So just one more question about this whole family thing, and let's focus now a little bit more on the balance of it all. I know that can be tough. You have twins. I'm a twin father as well, so I know how crazy that can get. So being in the industry that you're in, and, you know, gigs come up that you just got to say yes to, you know, when they were younger, you know, I imagine a lot of our viewers right now have full-time jobs and they have kids, but they're online, they're learning from you or one of our other teachers, and they want to make music a priority. How did you go about finding that balance to where you were still able to give music the attention it deserved, but not feel like you were missing out on the special stuff happening at home?
Right. Well, the key word is balance, and it's a good word, and it's an important word, and it's something that I think every day we sort of that becomes a strategic plan in our lives, and yes, sometimes, you know, I've had to be away during important events. Not a lot though. I've tried to prioritize a lot of things, and then, you know, I get the word from the big boss upstairs that if you miss graduation, it's not going to be a good thing. So yeah. I try to make my schedule so that that pretty much I'm there for all the events. And, you know, yesterday I got off the plane and went straight up to school and saw my daughter's track meet, you know, and so I'm really, it's really fun trying to keep up with everything, and the balance of it all I find challenging, but I enjoy it. It's like a whole another thing that I'm very passionate about. I love being there for my family. They love seeing you know, Dad there, and so I'm, you know, that's one of the things I'm trying to be there, you know, because we only get a short time together.
Absolutely. Yeah. They'll be off to college before you know it.
I know. It just happens so quickly. But we do trips together as well. They've been to Japan with me, and
right.
And so it's fun to bring them along as well.
Great. So then the second half to that question he was asking was just kind of what helped you the most to establish the excellent feel of rhythm that you have.
Oh man, rhythm is one of those things you really, it's really got to kind of be inside your heart, you know, and I just, I never stop listening to music. I listen to the records, the radio, and I've been blessed to play with the best drummers on the planet, you know, from Jeff Porcaro when he was alive, Ricky Lawson, who did my first record when he was alive, you know, people like Carlos Vega, I can't believe they're gone, you know. I'm in a band with Harvey Mason, Foreplay, you know.
Oh yeah.
Vinny Colaiuta and I play a lot of gigs together, you know. Greg Field and I have been playing. We were just in a session last night in the studio, Stevie Wonder. And, I mean, so I feel very fortunate to, lots of them just played with Dave Weckl, with Chick Corea's Electric Band. Mm-hmm. And these are guys that they're rhythm kings, you know, Steve Ferroni, John Robinson. And these guys have rhythm like nobody else. I can remember sometimes, you know, back in the day, you just listen to these records, Quincy Jones or what have you, and I just listen to the drums. You just tune everything out except the drums. And it's just like solid. And I think that's really one of the most things we can do is just listen to what's going on the drums, which I'll be doing with Steve Gadd tomorrow night.
Yeah, very cool. So you said you never stop listening to music. We have someone here asking, so who are your influences? And what are some guilty pleasure artists that you may have that you like to listen to, but maybe you don't go advertising it? Is there any stuff like that that you like?
You know, I'm so all over the board with my listening. You know, some days I'm in a classical mood, and Rachmaninoff, you know, Symphony Number 2 in E minor will be my go-to choice. I often, you know, I just did a record called Reverence where I did 2 Earth, Wind, and Fire songs. So obviously I'm a big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan from way back in the day. You know, Verdi and White I used to listen to and imitate and copy him verbatim. You know, if he took his shirt off, I took my shirt off. If he played a white bass, I played a white bass. You know,
there you go.
Whatever, you know. So but all over the map. I mean, I was just in New York last weekend and had a chance to do some jamming with Pat Metheny, who I feel like he's almost written the soundtrack to my life. You know, all of his records I've had throughout my life, you know, when I'm driving or traveling, and those end up being go-to records just that I enjoy thoroughly, you know. So and everything in between, you know, from rock and roll to blues and R&B, jazz. I just love it all.
Yeah. Any specific starting point with Pat Metheny? If someone hadn't really, I mean, he's got such a big you know, where would you start? Was there a single record that really touched you?
You know, Pat had a record called Secret Story. It was out in the 80s, and it had I think he had used the London Philharmonic for orchestras, but I think it originated in Brazil. And it was just every note on this record was magic, and I can remember. I mean, at least 1,000 listenings, you know, top to bottom.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's great when you can hear a record, and every time you play it, you hear something new. You know, it's I didn't hear that in the percussion over there, or you know, just parts continue to evolve, and that's to me the mark of a you know, a great record. You know, where it just stands the test of repeated listenings.
Right. One of the viewers right now is asking, just kind of a shift here, asking about it says, Nathan, can you tell us about your bass? I own an older Yamaha Nathan East Signature 5-string, very nice instrument. How is your current Yamaha different from that one? Okay,
well, what we've done is this is probably the second variation of the first one, and all we really try to do is just improve on the electronics. I do have the parametric equalizer built into this bass, so you can actually hear a tonal quality change.
Yeah,
that's different than this. So I have EQ, and then I have, you know, really complete control over every aspect of the lows, mids, and highs, and also the pickup selection. So for me, this is kind of my go-to instrument now.
It's a beautiful instrument.
Thank you.
And you're still playing out of, as far as amps go, you're still playing out of TC Electronic?
Yes, I'm using the TC Electronics Blacksmith amp and 2 4x10 cabinets, and that's my rig.
Yeah, those are beautiful instruments. Okay, so Mike Vendetti is saying, can you please tell us about your first gig with Eric Clapton, what that was like? And that's a story I've sat down with you many times and heard a lot of stories, but I actually don't think I've heard that one before. How did that relationship start?
I see. You know, we were actually called. It was actually 1983. So if you do the math, it was a while ago. And we were just talking about the other day, he was working on an album in England, and it was for Warner Brothers, and some of the Warner Brothers executives invited him to Los Angeles, and those producers had their stable of musicians that they use. And fortunately, I was one of those guys. It was, you know, Steve Lukather was on guitar, Michael O'Mardian keyboards, I think Greg Fillinganes, Jeff Porcaro was on drums. So it was kind of like the LA session guys, and they you know, they introduced us to Eric. We were over the moon and excited to meet Eric, and you know, he was kind of excited to meet us. He hadn't met and worked with the American session guys. So that was a great time. And then there were a bunch of great songs that they had, you know, worked on, and so we recorded for Eric, and it came out great. The first album we did together was called Behind the Sun. Lots of great tunes, and then subsequent to that, there was an album called August that Phil Collins and Tom Dowd produced. We did that here at Ocean Way Studios. Eric came over, Greg Fillinganes was on keyboards, and that's when the quartet, me, Phil Collins, and Eric, and Greg, was put together. And after we did those sessions, we were having so much fun in the studio. It was almost like live performances that Eric's manager said, okay, I got 6 gigs booked. And so we started, I think, Montreux Jazz Festival, and then Oslo and Royal Albert Hall in London. And then it just kind of, it went from there. So, you know, it's hard to imagine we're talking about, you know, 3.5 decades ago.
Yeah, almost 40 years now. So what was the timeline on, you know, it went from this guy that you were like, oh, I can't even believe I'm in the same room with you, and then eventually it turned into like you guys became incredibly close, like brothers, right? So what was the timeline there?
Well, I think over that many years, you know, you establish you know, more than a working relationship. It becomes like almost like, you know, it does become like family.
Yeah.
We started on the road, so there were many times when it would be, you know, at least a month in England when we were doing the Albert Hall dates. I mean, that particular series of events was, we did 6 nights at the Royal Albert Hall, then we did 12, then we did 18, and then we did 24 nights. As a matter of fact, they made an album out of the 24 nights, you know. And so then we did MTV Unplugged, and it just, you know, my parents used to come over. Eric's grandmother, Rose, became very near and dear to my heart, so we'd keep in touch. And pretty soon you look up and yeah, there's a brotherhood. I mean, it's just a natural, very organic way it comes together. And you know, it's a lovely thing that if you're fortunate to have that happen, I think it's just much better than we just work together.
Yeah, that's great. So this student is asking, so Nathan, how do you teach so many people when you're on the road so much?
Well, we know the challenges of that. You know, I love my you know, my students here at ArtistWorks, and I love the school and everything that it's about. I mean, if those watching or anybody, I know we have some folks on Instagram looking now, but if you haven't, if you're not familiar with the program, it's artistworks.com, and there's teachers and faculty on every instrument. You know, just I think what we're up to, over 30 teachers now, something like that, and Paul Gilbert and Chuck Lowe. You got all these great, you know, jazz guitar, rock guitar, harmonica, and so it's a great school, and we've all put together a curriculum of you know, hundreds of lessons from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so those you can go online and see at any time. And then the other great thing is catching up in person, so that we can do video exchanges, which are a little more challenging when your travel schedule is ambitious as like mine. But I always try to at least, you know, find time to get to the videos and stay in touch with my students. And I've met a lot of my students around the world, which is always fun. You know, there you are in Istanbul, and somebody comes up to you on the street and says, "Hey, I'm one of your students." You know, so it's very exciting and a great program. And you know, the one thing that I'm really grateful for is that that people are able to get educated, and we're able to, you know, continue this what we do in an educational environment.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful thing for students around the world to have access to players of your caliber and get feedback from you, and even build relationships with you guys over the video exchange and stuff. It really is something special. Absolutely.
And I think it continues to grow. And, you know, and I know a lot of the artists that are instructors are around, you know, you got Grammy Award winners and folks that are very busy, but I think everybody is aligned with the common goal of continuing the education of music and the arts. So very, very proud to be and happy to be there at ArtistWorks.
We're happy to have you. So Jan from Colorado is asking, do you find that singing to your playing helps you to get those notes you would like to hear and transmit to others? And then also, does it help with your timing?
No, it connects me to the base of this. There's something about the voice, and of course I've always admired George Benson, the way it's just like one sound that you get, his voice and the guitar, and you know, he's the guy that I look up to the most for being able to sing along with his instrument. But yeah, I think we're, you know, it's connected. It's one of those things that we you know, these are extensions of our soul and heart and our body and minds and spirit. So any way to get that out, you know, the voice, whistling. It's a little early in the day, but whatever we can do to you know, just get the message out. You know, these are kind of our tools and instruments to get what's inside of us out, and so I enjoy singing. It really helps, again, yeah, with rhythm and kind of just locking in with ideas, you know, coming up with ideas for solos, what have you.
Right. Very cool. So hey, I have to ask you about this. I follow you on Instagram, and it was a few weeks ago you had this really awesome photo that you put. Well, I mean, it's always, anyone who doesn't follow him on Instagram, it's every single day. It's like, oh, Jimmy Fallon. It's just one thing after the other. But you know, you posted a picture and you said it's not every day you get to hang with a Beatle, and it was you and Ringo just hanging right there. It was a great photo. So tell me a little bit, as a huge Beatles fan, tell me a little bit about your past with, or your relationship with any and all those guys that you played with. George for a while, right? How did that start, and what was that relationship like?
Oh my goodness. Well, when George wanted to come out for which turned out to be his last tour, you know, Eric was giving him a little bit of encouragement and actually said, hey, listen, you know, use my band. We're a unit, and let's go. So we went over to London and rehearsed, and then went to Japan for what would be George's final tour. And you've never met a sweeter, kinder, more gracious human being. You know, he was a lovely man. And again, you know, the closeness and the brotherhood are, you know, what kind of the relationship develops into. And, you know, not to mention, you know, we get to play something and yeah. Comes the sun and all these songs, you know, every night, songs, you know, part of our DNA.
Right.
And recently I thought one of my friends was joking, but he said, hey, it's Ringo. You know, it was a message on my phone, and he said, get over here, I want you to record some songs, you know, and it was Ringo.
That's great.
You know, and so he was impersonating himself.
There you go.
But I love him. Again, you know, incredible drummer, incredible, you know, what he's given the world of music. And we had a great time up at the house. So we had to do our little our picture, you know, and it is still a thrill to me. You know, I wake up on these days that I'm getting ready to go over to do a session like that, and that's like, you're like a kid, you know, like, oh man, I get to play with the Ringo today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very, very fortunate to be able to, you know, and call those guys friends as well.
Sure. That Japanese tour that you went on with George, and you said Eric's band was there. Was Eric there as well?
Eric was there as well. Yes.
Cool.
So the entire band and George, and we did a combination of George's and Eric's tunes, and it was really a lot of fun.
And were they singing together, doing harmonies and stuff?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But the famous George Harrison Live from Japan, that famous record, that wasn't that one. That was years earlier, right? Is that the same record?
The one we did Live from Japan came out in the 90s, early 90s. So
okay. And it was on, and it came out on CD.
Yes, CD,
Yeah.
vinyl. Yeah, I think there's.
So that is the one I own. Then, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So,
cool.
yeah.
And then so what about Paul? Is there any relationship there? Have you guys ever crossed paths or played together?
We've seen each other. I ran into him at the Grammys, and as a matter of fact, I gave him one of my picks, and he said, "Oh, here, have one of mine," you know. And so we traded plectrums, and we haven't played together. That would be a joy. Of course, we play the same instrument, but we do run into each other, you know, from time to time. And again, a sweetheart of a guy.
Yep,
I'm the biggest fan.
So Rick Spencer is asking, this is a great question. So what can you do if you're playing all the right notes, but it just doesn't sound as musical as what you play? Is there something we can practice or learn from a recording maybe?
You know, I spent a lot of times when I was growing up and learning, just playing to the records, playing to the radio, imitating some of my favorite bass players, you know, James Jamerson, all the Motown records.
Yep.
Chuck Rainey. I mean, literally, if I saw those guys, it didn't matter whose name was on the front. If their name was on the back, I'd buy the record. You know, just to learn and play along. So in groups like Tower of Power and of course Earth, Wind and Fire, Kool and the Gang, all these bands back in the day, I would literally just play along with the records or the radio and just try to learn as much of what I was hearing as possible. You know, and again. You know, that's the example of, you know, that's the record, that's like the Bible. So I try to get as close to that as possible. And then, you know, sure, when you first plug in the tone or the notes, if it's not right, you just keep at it until you get it. Yeah,
that's great. The Mighty Zombie, that's his screen name, username. So he's asking, do you practice every day? And if so, what sort of things do you work on? Scales, songs? How many minutes and hours do you recommend?
Right. Well, as many as you can stay connected to the instrument. Unfortunately, I play every day, so I'm always in a work situation. But at the same time, I do try to keep my fingers limber or whatever. And I used to do the Popeye exercise.
That's great. I hadn't heard that one before.
That's what I used to do, and I do it with my friends, and we'd speed it up every time and try to get it to, you know, to the point where, which I can't do right now.
So was that something you learned in school, to take the Popeye song and apply it to the fretboard, or was that just something you and your friends would mess around with?
That was just something mess around with. You know, it was one of those sort of, you know, C major scale with, you know, but it seemed to kind of be a good warm up, you know.
Yeah.
Like a stretch.
That's great. Yeah, that's really valuable. We actually have multiple students asking about practice routine, how to get the most out of their practicing, make sure they're not, you know, wasting their time. Xavier Noria is asking, what was your practice routine when you were a student?
When I was a student in college, I studied with Bert Turetsky, so there were lots of Dragonetti etudes and lots of upright music that we were assigned to work on. As far as electric bass was concerned, I always kind of had a gig at a top 40 club band. So literally my job required me to listen to the radio and learn all the the latest songs that were in the top 40. And so in a way, I was getting a classical training as well as kind of just regular R&B and pop, a sense of learning. And so the cross between those two was good because, you know, we had to stay current with the material that we were playing in our band.
Right.
And so that kept me going. And then I remember Barry White started calling me up to Los Angeles to do his records. So I would drive up by day and record, from 10 to 5, and then I'd hit the road, come back, and then play at the Hilton Cargo Bar from 9 to 1.
Yeah,
do that every day, So it was good just to kind of still get a wide variety, And I was listening to a lot of different records. Again, it's fun to play with Chick Corea now, and then back then I was learning all those Return to Forever and
yeah.
A lot of those records I was listening to and learning Stanley Clarke's parts verbatim and Herbie Hancock, Headhunters. And so it just seemed that there was a lot to keep you busy. And as there is today, I mean, if you go on YouTube, just start searching. There's bound to be something. I mean, there's so many players, all the instruments, and there's bound to be something that's going to catch your eyes or ears that's going to be good to work on.
Right. So if my timeline is correct, that those Barry White gigs were kind of the first big kind of gigs that you were getting, correct?
Yes, those were really early days, and I think I was as young as 16 years old where I found myself at the Apollo Theater in Madison Square Garden, Kennedy Center, playing with Barry White and Love Unlimited Orchestra, tuxedo. Mm-hmm. And it was great because it was all it was my brother and the band that we had in San Diego called Power. So we were hired by Barry. He hired the entire band to go on tour with him, and we were like, we couldn't believe it, And at that time, everything he was filling arenas around the country, and all of his records were hits. So we were just kind of like little kids with this experience. The other day at Madison Square, I looked over there, and as I was coming out of there, I said, "Man, been doing this for a while now." And yeah. I remembered coming out there, seeing the post office on the 32nd Street right there, all the columns. And I remember, the impression that left on me way back when I was 16.
Wow, that's great. Hey, actually, that Popeye theme song, lots of people are asking about it. They're asking if you teach that in your curriculum on ArtistWorks, but I don't know that you do. Is that on there?
I'm not sure if we put that on there or not, but maybe we'll do a lesson to put that on there. You
can get it on there, yeah.
Yeah, because it's literally D major scale. But it's a good one. It's a good warm up.
Yeah, that's great. So Donna Peterson is asking, do you have any fun stories about playing with friends in your youth, kind of before all of this happened and you were just a young kid playing around?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I was growing up, we had lots of gigs, where we would, and because we had the station wagon, that means we were in charge of the PA, so we had to drag that around. And then
that's fun.
My buddy Carl Evans, rest his soul, he was the leader of a band called Fatburger, and we grew up since kindergarten together, and tons of stories. We used to go over his house, his mother and father's house, and practice. They'd come over to our house and practice, and back then you'd find somebody's house that didn't mind all the noise that they'd hear. And my father would go to the other end of the house and shut the door, and we'd be in there making a heck of a racket. But it was just fun, It was one of those things. When I see the program Garage Band, that's what we find somebody's garage and set up and practice in there. Yeah,
it's got to stay fun, right? I mean, throughout your years and having a family, and it turns into work. Did you ever catch yourself having to kind of? It suddenly became work and it wasn't as fun anymore, and you had to kind of do something to change your perspective a little bit, or?
I'm very fortunate. I haven't had to. I mean, it's always been something. Down to last night. We were in over at the studio with Stevie Wonder working on a song, and he was singing and playing harmonica, and I was sitting next to him thinking to myself, this is amazing that I get to do this. And at this level, and with people that are so gifted and talented, and to this day, I'm as excited about going to work as I've ever been.
Yeah. How is old Stevie doing?
It's good. He's just incredible. It's Wonder is a very appropriate name. You know, I mean, just it is just so much fun to play. He's so musical and such a great. I love him with all my heart.
Yeah, he's working on a new record right now.
And yeah, this was a record for Arturo Sandoval. That's probably not later on in the year. And so it's just again, you know, to play with great musicians like that is a blessing.
Yeah. So Scott Bryan is asking, are you able to enjoy some amount of anonymity?
Oh yeah, I mean it's great. I mean now it's kind of like, I mean, everywhere I go, it's an anonymous until somebody says, "Hey, aren't you?" You know, which happens from time to time. But yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, I can't imagine people like, you know, Michael Jackson, Prince, where, you know, you can't go anywhere. We used to when we were recording with Michael, the most exciting thing he could come up with during the day is putting on his dark glasses, his hat, maybe a fake mustache, and going around the corner to 7-Eleven, you know, down the street from the studio. And that to him was the most exciting thing, you know, to see if he could get in and out of there.
Well, yeah, being a superstar, I mean, since he was a young child, that was probably something he really missed out on.
Right, you know, so, you know, here's something like that, you know, it was like an adventure for him, you know, and it's funny, you know, because I don't know why he thought nobody'd recognize him. You know, he's got the red leather jacket, that Thriller video, you know. He's going to 7-Eleven getting the slip.
Great. Well, but hey, the mustache did it all, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, hey, so let's get into that world a little bit, because we haven't talked about Quincy and all those, you know, all those musicians that were working for Quincy at the time, and then, you know, your relationship with Michael Jackson and how that all went. So what can you tell us about Quincy, first of all?
Oh my goodness. Again, you know, you can describe him, he's a mentor, a brother, you know, a friend, consummate musician, you know, I think one of the top producers we've ever had, an arranger, you know, composer. He's it all, you know. He just celebrated his 84th birthday, and he still has more energy and is more ambitious than I've ever seen anybody, you know. Comes into the studio, knows exactly what, you know, he knows what he has so much vision for the big picture, which is what I respect. You know, he can hear a song and really hear, you know, where that song can go. You know, the Steve Vaccaro song "Human Nature." I think you heard that was on the flip side of a tape of some material Steve had sent in, and started playing, and he hears the song, you know, and I don't think Steve was even trying to submit the song, but Quincy says, "What's this?" You know, and they recreated what Steve Vaccaro did, this magical track. Michael sang it, and, you know, the rest is history. It's just, he has this vision for bringing music, you know, completing it. And I've never seen anything like it. I still learn. I still use some of the tips. He comes over and whispers, "How about putting a pickup before the second verse?" You know, and, okay. Yeah. So it just goes in the bank.
Yeah, that's great. So then, how did the obviously Quincy was your connection to Michael, and that's how you guys worked together, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So so tell us a little bit more about what that was like. I mean, what a mysterious figure in the history of music, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, in the studio, Michael was just like, you know, the rest of the guys, telling jokes. We sit down, have dinner, you know, after the session. He'd drive himself, you know, you'd see him pull it up in the back of the studio over at Westlake, and so, but the thing that I loved about Michael was when you put him in front of that microphone, he knew exactly what he wanted to sing. I mean, he was ready. Not like trying to figure out what he was going to sing. And he also, you know, as mysterious as he was, and you'd hear, I don't know where all the elephant stories and all, because you come in there and it's just like anybody else. We all just have a good time making music. It's just that when he made the music, it's going to be going out to all corners of the world,
right?
And lots of lives are going to be affected by it. So there's a pretty big responsibility that comes with that. And I think Quincy was the perfect guy to handle, the production and run it. You'd go in the studio and you just see, David Foster and Lukather, David Page. You'd see like LA's finest.
Yeah,
would be all over. Would be there, and so it was just very, very, very special. Oh, there's the phone again. Sorry. Stand by.
Hey, so just a few more questions to get through here, but did you want to take a moment and maybe play a little bit more for us? I know you had Sir Duke going earlier. Do you want to jam on that for us a little bit, or?
Stevie, let me know if this comes through sounding, but this is a version I recorded on my album. Hey. Now I gotta play bass. That's Jeff Babco. Jeff Babco in the background. And on the floor.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
I love that arrangement. That's great.
Thanks.
You guys did that when you were here with Paul, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Came out great. So yeah, all you ArtistWorks students there, if you make your way to Nathan's school, there's in the Plus Music section, there's a great performance of that. All right, so just
challenge with Paul too over there.
yeah.
That's always a fun way to go back to.
Right. All right. Well, just a quick announcement to the viewers. Thank you so much for all these questions. There's so many good ones left. I don't know if we need to do a round 2 with you soon, because there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to touch on, but we only have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to get through as many of these as I can. So this one is Ovidu Rod. I'm not sure how to pronounce their student name, but they're saying, do you think differently about bass lines and tone when you approach different styles of music? Do you try to sound like the front artist, or do you want to keep your signature?
Well, you know, every song gets its own treatment. You know? So I basically think about what's good for that song, you know, and it's all about that. You know, I'm not really worried about a signature or anything, but I am worried about whether my tone is going to be approached from, you know, a real warm tone near the bridge or near the neck, or a real tight tone, you know, or more punctuated percussive type of sound, you know. So, and then everywhere in between, you know, like, so placement on the right hand is definitely one of the things I'm always concerned about. But yeah, the song every time.
Great. So Rose Mallory is saying, hi, Nathan. I'm a cellist currently studying with Mike Block at ArtistWorks. And says, I'm also learning electric bass and looking to play in a local cover band. Any advice on how to just improve my tone?
Okay, well, the cello was my first instrument. I played it for 3 years before I switched to bass, and I loved the instrument, and I did the same thing. I used to tune it like a bass and go around and jam in bands. You know, these days I'm not sure how to, other than, you know, either looking on YouTube or in the paper. I'm not sure how to connect with the other musicians, or if you have some friends that you can call up and get 2 or 3 players in the garage and go over some tunes and start playing. Great,
very good. Well, that actually leads to my next question quite nicely. It's from Donna Peterson, and she was just asking. So you said cello was your first instrument. So she says, Nathan, what other instruments do you play, and why did you decide to focus on playing the bass?
Yeah, I play a very limited amount of guitar and piano and drums, you know, the rhythm instruments. But bass, back in the day, I remember my brother David played guitar, so I was kind of tagging along with him. But I couldn't get the shapes and my fingers into the shape. Maybe there's a little bit of the fact that, you know, the 4 strings were just easier than 6 from the beginning. I felt like the first day I picked up the bass, it was something that I felt like I could do. You know, this power was instantly in my hands. You know, and I'm still working on it.
Right. So it says here. Let's see. So hi Nathan. Very happy for you joining this live event. My question is, could you explain how to get a solid sound out of playing on different amps? Any tips on EQ as well? Thank you.
Yeah, different amps, and a lot of players I've seen, a lot of young players, they just pick up the bass, plug it in, and then they just start kind of whacking away without working on the sound. First thing I do is plug in, play a note, and I determine whether it's too loud, too soft, you know, and then I start working on the tone a bit, you know. So I'm looking for a nice round tone, but not too boomy, not too thin, you know, but just a nice meaty tone that represents the sound of the bass, kind of a full-bodied sound, you know, and then even percussive, something that's going to cut through the through the sound of the band. And again, I'm not looking for anything boomy or too low, but then again, I want it to be nice and full and not too thin. So, you know, at that point, I just go back and, okay, I need add a little treble, take a little, I usually start flat, everything in the flat position. Gives me a good chance to kind of see what flat is about. And then from there, okay, we need to start adding. Then I can add them on the instrument as well. Until I'm really happy with the sound. But I mean, I'm fiddling with it even throughout the gig, just making sure that it's always, you know, what it should be.
That's great. So let's see. This one is from Scott Bryan. He just said, do you have a favorite track or song or project that you are particularly proud of?
A favorite?
A favorite song, favorite track that you were really proud of, or even just a project that you were a part of that you're really proud of?
You know, just it's funny because it's always whatever the last thing I've been working on is. You know, and on my record, I had the opportunity. Hey, sorry, I had the opportunity to focus on some songs I really loved. You know, a couple of Earth, Wind, and Fire songs. I had some Stevie in there. Some of the songs some of my new songs that I was writing. So, you know, whatever song I'm working on in a particular day, it kind of, I go to bed with that song in my head, and it's like that's my favorite song for the day.
That's great. Well, unfortunately, I think we got to start wrapping it up here. We didn't get to touch on Daft Punk. We didn't get to touch on that Eric Clapton Unplugged record, and that just took over the world. Maybe you can spend 30 seconds on that. That was you know, I remember that so well. There was that big Nirvana Unplugged performance that was so huge, and Neil Young did a big one. And when you were on that with Eric, and you know, Tears in Heaven came out and was playing all over the radio, and you know, what was the experience like of you know, being on such a widely televised event like that, and the rehearsal and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you don't know, these things are largely experiments. You know, you don't know at the time that you know, the thing's going to sell 25, 30 million albums. You know, just like at the time, I can even remember, you know, it was going to be an unplugged record. So literally everything was unplugged. It was true to the form. It wasn't like we were, so I had upright, and I think this is the bass that I actually played on that show.
Wow.
And, you know, there were songs that were, you know, obviously very, very heartfelt, but we didn't know. I think Eric kind of had a bet. He didn't even want to put it out because he didn't think it was good enough. You know? So, but yeah, this bass was the actual bass that I played on Unplugged. You know. Yeah, so lots of memories.
I watched that concert a lot of times. You were still rocking the mustache back then, right?
And I think there was a little hair involved too, associated. Hair today, gone tomorrow.
All right, Nate. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our audience members, all of our viewers, for the great questions. You know, you guys really guided this conversation, and much appreciated. Our winner is Rick Spencer. Congratulations. Our customer service department's going to be contacting you. We're going to add a few months onto your current membership. So thanks to you and everyone for their participation. And Nathan East, what can I say? Thank you so much. I know how busy you are, but we really appreciate you taking an hour with us today.
Well, speaking of busy, and we are the faculty and instructors at ArtistWorks, but I want everybody also to know how much work that you guys all do behind the scenes to keep this great program going. So yeah, props and hats off to you guys as well, John.
Thank you very much. I'll let everyone know. I think a lot of the crew's probably watching this right now, but I'll make sure everyone knows and said thank you. All right, guys. Well, tune in next month, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks much. See you soon. See you on campus.